and it's not a joke. And I'm not going to make anything about it a joke, but it is really that we cannot be paranoid in circumstances that the world is directing processes in a certain way, in the opposite way than the processes should be directed. Everyone knows about the processes. It's long year processes. We have been educated in primary school about most of the processes, and the processes has caused so much disruption in the world. Countries are at war today because of processes that were meant to be managed in a way that are fine for humanity, and now has led to humanity having to the whole time direct and divert the processes in the opposite way because humanity wants to protect. This one wants to be protected, that one wants to be protected, so the other one is bombed down about it. And what I'm going to today say is Ribea Elise is speaking. I'm born in South Africa, and the processes are oddly disruptive in South Africa, meaning if the processes goes to another country, it's going to be disruptive in the country. The process relates to the BRIC project, right? So it mentioned BRIC, but it speaks about beer, about Brazil, India, and all of those countries, but they used to call me BIG, and I'm born in all of those processes about it, right? And the film was written about it and sent to South Africa about it from Turkey and Syria in 2020. And I was watching the program. The program's name is Kiria Lik, and the program is a Turkish program, and it educated me about me in the process of it, right? So the Daphne in the process of the fashion industry. And the Daphne was working somewhere in the restaurant, and I was a waitress, and I was at Bull and Build It with a European person, and the process has got to do with BIG the process speaks about the FIFA World Cup, and that was gonna be there, and I watched the film over and over again, right? It's a series, and that you get on YouTube, you can get it, but they air it on South African national television. And the process came to South Africa, and I was in South Africa for the year so that I probably could watch the program, right? Because the program was speaking about me, but it was not looking like me and me in the photos and anything about the Ribea Elise about it. And in the program, he calls it a BIG, right? So he doesn't speak in the Turkish way of saying it is BIG, but they're talking about the BRIC program, and they used to call me BIG or BIG. And I was then kind of in the process of it because I'm born in the womb of the communications in the world. And my four brothers looks like the Boys to Men. My mama Anna Philander looks like this and is born European in all the countries. And then we were born the 7 children in the process, right? The mama Anna Philander was the 1969 earthquake mama that was on the Tulbagh Southern Road when there was an earthquake in South Africa, right? And my mama and I, Ribea Elise, then found my name amongst the process of it, but it was meant to be a management process, but it affects the personal person if the process is not managed in a fine way. And Ribea finds herself in Auckland, New Zealand, with the disruptiveness of the process of it, and the whole time the process is disrupting my day, and it's aggressions, and I'm not mentally challenged, but I have to release so much information in my house about not talking to myself, but to everyone who's managing the world, who's listening in on devices, and they're actually managing the process to hear how I can explain what is happening in the circumstances of the world. And it makes me paranoia, and they sometimes have me, yesterday they had me talk and explain to them the whole day the process, right? So on the devices, I explained yesterday to someone who came to my house, two Chinese guys and the woman, it was about the miscarriage situation. And I explained to them that. And while they came to my house and I explained it to them, I left the television on and the phone is recording so that everyone can hear what is actually happening in the process. Remember when people come to you and they deal with a certain circumstance and you have to explain, then everyone is recording in the world. And after they left, I was still speaking almost for the whole day, having to explain to them because they speak on television and you can constantly hear them wanting information from me, and they don't release me and they don't let me just go on with my day after the people is not in the house anymore. There's people on devices that still requires information. And I know the world are in war, and some countries want the information released so that I can maybe explain them out of a situation, right? That they're experiencing in their countries. But the way that it goes on for the whole day to me is a problem. And that's what I want to reprimand South Africa about. I don't want to reprimand South Africa. I want to reason with how is South Africa managing the world in those processes when South Africa is so disruptive and has the whole time been against me, the person finding myself in New Zealand that are born in South Africa. So the process, Gershawn process, the project that they talk about in Russia is exactly the Gershawn person that I met, right? The Gershawn guy, and he looked like an African American guy, right? And I met him somewhere, and I was watching the Titanic film those years, right? And I was watching it in a certain street where I met Gershawn at, right? And why Gershawn, right? His name was Gershawn. And the British American tobacco house, right? British American tobacco, Philip Morris in New Zealand that I was working at. The whole process is running around me, but they're managing it wrong and it's disrupting the world. And I have a problem with that because I'm very educated and I'm very intelligent and I cannot understand how everyone would want to disrupt the process so much, right? And it's not difficult to manage the world. But what I want to say, let me drink a cup of tea because I cannot also speak the whole time without drinking a little bit of tea. In the process of it, they have me talk on YouTube and social media also the whole day, and it only needs to be, when you manage devices, right? And the devices are managed in a way. The pressure shouldn't be on you that does the recording on the device. You know what they do in the celebrity house when the celebrities get paranoia and they look like someone else has control of their human brain and body function. Now that's what they do when I do YouTube videos, and I have a problem with that process also. It's human beings on earth managing it, and I'm going to explain to them now, and we know who we are dealing with because no one in the world is dumb about how the world are being ruled and controlled. And I'm Ribea, Elise, and everyone knows I'm not dumb, but I'm not going to allow myself to be abused by all the processes when processes can be managed in a fine way, and that I can speak properly, and that I have regular times to drink my tea, but somewhere outside they're pressurizing the human brain function while I'm doing the recording. And the satellites go upside, NASA goes to the moon, China goes to the moon, and they go and do all of these amazingnesses, but the processes of it is they need to do it like television. When a television presenter has got a break time and they can drink a cup of tea, now they don't do that to us. They come and press us the whole time to release information, but they need to, like they do that with the African American celebrities. They pressurize them and then they want to tell the world that they are doing wrong, but they are managing the processes from upstairs, up in the sky, in the moon, and where humanity are functioning from. And everyone needs to manage those processes, right? Because I want to be educating our world out of war, but we're not going to be abused through the education. They have abused the celebrities about it. Now they come to follow that same process on me. In New Zealand, they know how to have the television rooms right and how to have the talking right and the talking pace right. But by Ribea, Elise, when I'm talking, then they're all signaled in and then they all shove me to talk the whole time, right? And I cannot also allow that with New Zealand television. I have a problem with them, a problem with them, because they have been disruptive in a time where the world was really in war. But I'm going to just only talk about South Africa now. What I want to say about the Gershawn project, right? So British American Tobacco, then Gershawn was coming to a house, right? And Gershawn, and we went into a Rembrandt British American Tobacco family house. South Africa is a house set up in a way that this is British American Tobacco houses. Their people stay in this community at this house and that house, okay. Then British American Tobacco closed and British American Tobacco people moved away because the whole world was probably arguing. And then after that process, I found myself in the process of it, right? And my mama was friends with the auntie who also had, so our whole community, I was also friends with people who was working now really at British American Tobacco. And then I was now really so they work with the primary school and the education processes of China, right? China is education, China sends the information to South Africa, and South Africa work hand in hand with that processes with them. China is offices and businesses, they send the information to South Africa, and South Africa works hand in hand with that with them. So the education primary school, grade R school, was then Auntie Liesel, right? Opposite Auntie Liesel's house is where Ribea Elise was at, right? And Auntie Liesel's primary school daycare is by South Africa Groenewald by the Boland Stadium, where the sports people play their community sports, where the Boland Festival yearly are. And so in there by Groenewald side of us, there is now the primary school grade R, right? So there's the grade R process, the primary school process, and the secondary school process, university levels and college levels, right? So what happens in the primary school processes is the more disruptive. No, what happens to the grade R communication in the world is more disruptive than the primary school and secondary school. The primary school and secondary school in the world were meant to be functioning and has been functioning well all these years, right? So the Gershawn process is the boy's name is Gershawn, right? Everyone's name is named after something, and it means something to humanity, so that humanity don't find themselves disruptive in that day when the world argues about all the processes. So the Gershawn guy I then met, right? And we then found ourselves there opposite Auntie Liesel's house by a British American tobacco house, right? And while we were by Auntie Liesel's house, another Liesel in the road, right? Not by Auntie Liesel's house, opposite Auntie Liesel's house. The people were not at home, the children are teenagers, the children are young, and we found ourselves in that house. Next to the house was a police guy staying, right? And on that side of the house is the grade R primary school. And in the house, I was in the same street, I was watching the Titanic film. Someone took me to the same street, and I was watching the Titanic film in that street. And around the corner on that street is Ludwig sitting. Ludwig was a young drunk boy, and he's not too drunk, but he was always sitting on the corner, right? The Ludwig edits on Instagram. And the Ludwig guy, Valencia edits on Instagram, is Valencia Blaine, a person who stays a totally different distance away from us, right? And then photo edits. But let me explain them through the Ludwig process. No, through that whole process of that street, the Gershawn project. And then they manage the houses in a certain way. You go to real estate gives you a house in a certain street, but the education function is also in that street. And the education is a grade R school, right? Remember, the primary school is opposite to that, and the primary school is the Alveda Primary School, and just around the corner by the Alveda somewhere there's the grade R school that they opened. And the process is so disruptive in the process. Then I was watching the Gershawn tree, the police function next to that, and British American tobacco struck the auntie down, and the auntie, or some lightning struck the auntie down. The auntie was working for British American tobacco, her husband, and she was my mama, Anna Spilander's best friend, and she was sitting in front of television. And her mother was my mama's friend. My mother's name is also Anna White and Anna Black. And the mother was colored white. And they were two best friends, right? And then Anna White's daughter was sitting in front of television. And my mama came in home one night, and my mama said, "You're Ribea, the lightning now struck Mama Anna White's daughter, Anna Brown, we used to call her." And Anna Brown's daughter was then struck with a lightning in the house, and the tree was struck. And the struck, then she was not struck out, but it was harming and harmful to her and the child, right? But not too harmful. I didn't disable them because there was a big tree in front of the house, and her husband used to work for British American Tobacco. Now, South Africa is managing those processes, and the policemen are staying exactly opposite, just a distance away opposite that house. And the Paarl Hospital employment team, who used to also work with my mama, they're all staying in that road and around that road, and the whole process are managed in that way. Now, how it's disrupting the international world is the international world doesn't require a lot of information, right? Putin and Zelensky has a process, and it's called BRG. It's called when they manage certain processes in countries and functions in countries, then they need the communication to be accurate. And when they say what's the person's name who was staying maybe there or who was there, because everyone Google Maps in, then they say Ribea, Elise, that person. Don't give them wrong information because it causes them to be in war, right? And then I got a house in New Zealand opposite the Indian temple. Now remember, Zelensky struck Putin's temple of the other day, right? Putin was meant to be in the temple, and Zelensky missed it, right? And Zelensky struck the temple of it. Now, what happened by the Indian temple is in New Zealand, I was staying opposite the Indian temple. And where I was staying opposite the Indian temple, the Indians had now their management processes in New Zealand. And the processes then affected, and they had argument about the different management processes in the world. And that's the Russia-Ukraine war. It's not a country's war. It's the processes that are managed by certain countries. And then they struck Putin's temple out, and Putin was not even in the building, and they just took a photo on the phone for us on Al Jazeera, not a photo, a video. That is now the temple of Putin that was struck, that process of it, right? That's how they talk in the war. The process is looking like that. What is that? That process is, Ribea Elise is going to explain. I'm just going to take another cup of tea for that. It's Ribea Elise explaining it. So then the temple. I was in South Africa in 2020. I was sitting in a house, and we grew up in a family next to a family's house in Bontebok Street 23. Right, and we moved to Groenewald, and they came to put everyone there by us again. Everyone who stayed next to us in Bontebok Street. That's how they probably manage their processes. And then everyone of Chicago came to stay by us by Groenewald Street. Right? So they didn't put them far off. They somehow put them again next door. So then I was in 2020 a year in South Africa. And then the young person was now enjoying herself. And then she had a sleep one night, and she said, she was just getting up off the bed and slammed down like a slam dunk in the film. Something did that, knows what it was. And I didn't think about it after all the things that we learned in primary school that says that young boys are doing a lot of things, and they are sometimes driving the cars without heads, and women has got headache in South Africa for many years about it. And some women died about the headaches when they were 60-year-old and very young. So what they do is devices that are meant to be on cars, they put it on human brains and in the outside, and they drive without heads cars, right? And we get a headache, and we talk the whole day about it. And we learned about it in primary school. Not the teacher didn't say it with words, but the teacher said that young boys are busy with a lot of stuff, everyone. So just because of that. And a lot of people died, and grandmas were drinking medication in South Africa, and they all died younger than probably they were meant to, because of all these headaches and processes in medication the whole time. That people are driving cars with their heads and the brain functions outside. And they did that in New Zealand to me a lot. And that happened to me also. So then I was like in the house in New Zealand, and the process had me, and I was still sleeping, and I got up and I went to the kitchen. It happened twice in New Zealand, and I was walking to the kitchen, and that slam dunked me on the floor, and my brain popped, gwah. And I was like, what was that? But my brain was restored probably from inside after that. And I never thought about it until 2020 when I went to South Africa, and the person reminded me of it. And she told me what happened to her. And she said she's never thought of that. And she was sleeping. And while she was sleeping, she was not like me that was sleeping and getting up and walking to the kitchen. She was like sleeping, and they had that process brain function, and they slammed down on the floor. And she said her head almost knocked against the glass bottle. And yesterday I thought about it, and we as young people have to be cautious of the processes. But what they need to do is they need to manage those processes so that they don't manage it in our houses, right? So have you seen the car racing, motor racing guys? When they motor racing, the car is lifted up in the sky. Now that thing they use with our human brains. And some women really get headaches, and other women never get headaches. And we said the women that doesn't get headaches are probably the guilty ones, and that have the guys do that with our brain functions. And they do that with a celebrity house. It makes a celebrity house so paranoid the whole time. And so that motor racing thing, it's something outside in the universe. It's meant to be on the cars, but they stuck it by the house's side, and then they drive cars with your head. And your head gets headache the whole time about it. Right? Because the car was driving on the road with you, and you were actually in your house. And those processes need to be managed right, because the communication went wrong to Russia, Ukraine, and to China about it, because China is working with the education processes in South Africa is the whole time fighting with Ribea Elise about who knows what, and arguing and disruptive in Ribea. And I go on my social media page and I release the information, and I said, this is the offices that I was employed at: Nibblebirds, Bolenbold, at Oosterburg Lodge Hotel. Dubai called me to Dubai, and I didn't know why. Now I understand why y'all called me to Dubai, because you were busy around my name about it. But this is the information that I can release to y'all that probably happened, and that you're probably needing the world, and that someone is giving to y'all in the wrong way. And this is how I can explain the offices that I've been employed at. And then after that, so Nobelibits and Poland Boulder, let me just rephrase that. It's European businesses managed by Europeans in South Africa. And British American Tobacco is European also business managed by Europeans in South Africa. But the information and communications that went to Europe was disruptive, and South Africans give it the way they give it, and it's all over the place, and it affects a whole lot of our day. And because of that, I always say, get if South Africa needs to release information to the world, release it in a way that's non-abusive to the world itself. If people are releasing information to protect themselves, because everyone is going to do that, then be conscious of the effect of wars in countries, so that the information that you'll tell about Ribea, Elise, the film says that the Ribea, Elise, and then the whole green eyes, and definitely with the green eyes, and definitely with the frizzy hair, and the whole process is a different person. The only thing that the world leaders are saying, the world knows that everyone has to protect themselves when they're managing processes. But the Ribea Elise situation is not difficult. Give the correct information of Ribea Elise to the world if you have to. And if you don't know what information, then do not release any information to the world about the person. Because there I had the time to learn what the situation around me was about. Many people doesn't have the time to learn what the situation about them are about, and they find themselves being killed out about it. I had the time to release information on my social media pages and to say that this is me and this is my information and this is what I can explain to the world about me. So if it is any communication to the world that's oddly ruled and oddly managed around my house, then this is my Ribea Elise type of person and the information that I can share with y'all. I'm going to drink some tea because I need South Africa to release information in a way that's fine for the world. Because South Africans can't want to protect themselves when they are managing processes and they find themselves in international sports processes and they are giving wrong information the whole time. Because those machines functions that South Africa has now told New Zealand to use on Ribea Elise's brain function are functions that Ribea Elise is not dumb about. And we don't have to get angry about it. And the celebrities doesn't get angry being killed out by South Africa or whoever's killing them in the celebrity house out with all the diseases that they have and all the medications that goes wrong about it and all the killings that just happen. And there are many working under a management process that is like an office, but they are being killed out in that process just like whoever wants to, right? And they don't complain about it. But what I say is that when South Africa wants to give an opinion to the world, and South Africa's opinion is disruptive, the way they now has given wrong opinions about Ribea Elise, then South Africa cannot give an opinion to the world. Because who can manage the world in a way that are already so disruptive? The same way I say to New Zealand people, if y'all are having devices on my brain function, and you are sitting and managing New Zealand in the celebrity house and in your office, and you'll use it under Ribea Elise's brain, then you cannot manage the world in international discussion. Because then you almost corrupt the world and that way if you are corrupting a Ribea Elise person. And that's where certain countries find themselves in war. And the film said that other people is going to probably be in war for quite some time because of how the information that goes to the world in a way that are abusive to humanity. And all of those processes needs to be managed fine. I'm going to quickly say another thing that I want to say with everyone. Just quickly, before I just have to turn the light quickly. Another thing that I wanted to mention to everyone quickly. I posted it on my social media page yesterday, but the world has educated themselves to not listen to certain people's social media pages, and they do not want to listen because they want to explain themselves that they didn't hear someone said it. So they don't press play on your videos, they don't press view on your videos because they want to tell themselves that Ribea Elise didn't tell us that. And the world is reasoning currently in that way also. Many people are sometimes reading and they have to protect themselves, and I've mentioned that before. But when I release information and people press play, it doesn't mean anything. but they are sometimes doing it to a reason that they didn't press play to Ribea, Elise, and they didn't listen to Ribea, Elise. Some people said, who would listen to a person who puts her titties on a page? And that's how they want to reason, because they want to manage the world in that way. But yet the world includes nakedness, and the world includes all the educations that happens amongst humanity. And people who manage the world on social media says, we can't release Ribea, Elise's information because there's a titty on the page. The world is full of titties on their pages. And the people just sometimes who manage the social media need to release the information, and humanity decides for themselves who they want to listen to. So what I want to say, release information means the information is sometimes out there, and some people are not. The information is sometimes not visible. Other times people decide to not view the information for their own reasons, but other times there's certain videos that really sometimes are not available for people to view. And that is also the oddness of communicating and saying that no one told us that. The oddness of someone communicating and said, we didn't know things like that is happening in the world. The oddness of someone communicating to us and say everyone's name is Gershawn in the world. The oddness of Aisha Business who says that everyone says that, and I didn't wear Ribea's clothes because everyone wears yellow. The oddness, oh, everyone wears New Orleans veiled school colors. The oddness of the world telling one another, no one said it because we all wear the same clothes the whole day. So those communications that are disruptive, that says that we didn't know, no one said it, anyone does it, everyone's name is Ribea, Rabia, Rubia, Sabia, B-I-G, it means Brazil, India, and whatever this is. So everyone wants to reason in the world and say, it's not about Ribea. And in the meantime, half of the world's people die down because everyone said, it's not about you, it's not about you, it's not about you. I mentioned something yesterday on my page that says that in such a world, there's no wrong. Everyone reasons so wrong. In a world where there are no wrong, humanity tends to reason so wrong against themselves the whole time. They want to chase Ribea Elise around for a titty on the page about it, and the world is at war about it. But the people who came to manage the world and who chase Ribea Elise around for a titty on the page about it is the people who want to manage the world. And Ribea Elise said to the people yesterday in my house that the things that is happening in this world is not mentally crazy, Ribea. It's the fact that there's much happening and no one is doing nothing about it. And the fact that everyone works in offices and they want to ignore that this is not a mental challenge. This is people in my house that are oppressing me with world-ruling processes that are disruptive in my day and that can be threatening to the one human being, the other. And if the world tells themselves that everything is going to be a mental problem, we're talking about pregnancy and then the discussion went to a mentalness and about the miscarriage, and then the discussion went to mentalness about it. And then Ribea say, if you all educate yourselves in the world, that because I have my sister is a social worker myself, right? And there's nothing wrong about the social workers' processes, no. There's nothing wrong about the doctors' processes, no. There's a problem with the processes in countries that are against the one the other, right? I have a problem with processes in the countries that are oppressive the one to the other. The process came into my day. I find myself in Auckland, New Zealand, and I've reported the circumstances of communication in my house that can sometimes be managed in ways that are non-abusive to the house owner, to the tenant, or to the person who finds themselves in the house from a different country. The communication goes in offices these years, and that this person is putting a titty on the phone or on the photo while the world is at war. No one says it to Ribea Elise, but that's how people reason in the world. The communication in the offices are that, and they come to oppress you with devices and with world-ruling processes, and then they tend to say that we cannot listen to this person because the device is in this way. I've mentioned on my pages one day, and if the baby is stripping in this world on that day, what are y'all going to do? Because if the world tells themselves that the mama of the baby are too drunk, or the mama of the baby are mentally challenged, or the mama of the baby are dead, and that's why we can't listen to the mama, and then how is the world going to find themselves broken, at war, in aggressions, in killing one another on a daily basis? Because the world does not want to reason in a way that includes the whole world about it. The world does not want to manage the world in a way that includes all of humanity about it. And Ribea, Elise have a problem with the world that want to manage the world looking for a Vogue photo, and they don't want to look at Ribea, Elise, the person of a Vogue on the next day. And Ribea, Elise is now the normal person who's now not the perfect picture, who explains the situation in all the colors, the requirement to correct the situation in all the colors. And everyone says to Ribea, but not all the colors is correct, because the colors needs to look as perfect as a Vogue photo. And then Ribea says, and there to the world. World, honestly, there's a way that the world can be managed in a way that includes the whole world. And once we get that process wrong, then no one is going to be against no one. And then the arguments is not going to be too oppressive to humanity itself. I'm going to mention something quickly about information sharing that I've said on my page yesterday evening, after the whole day of mentalness and not mentalness, and after everyone left, and then the devices still talk in my house, and I can still hear through television, behind television teams, right? It's not devices, it's on television teams. They sit in celebrity house and they really talk the whole day, and because they want to keep me talking the whole day, and they tend to pretend that they are there for information so that I can say information, but they're actually challenging me. And they're actually trying to exhaust me, right? It's not mental challenge, it's exhausting. It makes you tired. And that is what they're doing through television devices behind the scenes about it, right? And a lot of devices that we buy in cell phones that records natural, it records, right? Without someone putting a record on it. And all of those communications in New Zealand are oddly abusive. And another that I want to mention about information sharing in the world, I'm quickly going to mention that. Let me quickly take a little bit of tea. With information sharing in the world, we have a problem. The world receives information from somewhere, right? And let's say from China, we don't know the country that are the main information holder of the world. And when the world receives information from the country, then the information needs to be released to different countries. And the process has all these years been that the Europeans receive the information, main information from Europe, and that the information around the world needs to go to the country that needs to go to, and the countries that needs to release the information needs to release the information. The human brain function in the world and the technology in the world. The human brain function in the world functions from somewhere in the universe, right? Where everyone goes and put their satellites and stars and all the things about. And technological functions in the world also go somewhere, and that's where they're manipulating my brain, and where my brain sometimes are over talking, and they're forcing information out of me, where they can regularly wait for me to do my discussions, like I educated on my social media pages, leading this generation discussion. I talk on that day. People of color advice I give on that day. When I give Ribea opinion about all that is happening in the world, and you require me to say, I give on that day. But what is happening these days is when people require you to do a live stream any day and any day, right? And then they are pressurizing the brain function in the universe of Ribea, Elise. And that to me is a problem sometimes. So the way that we release information is we educate them on my time and on my pace, I always say. And don't force information out of me. So now technology is next to the human brain function in the universe. And technology is not managed wrong on earth. Technology can everyone knows it, everyone says it on social media and on YouTube. Technology can overpower the human brain, right? So what we need to do is that the information that the human brain receives, right? The information holder of the human brain, the information that needs to be released to certain countries. And when there's people that manages those processes, I've mentioned it on my phone yesterday on Facebook, and I said, when there's countries that knows that the information all the years went to Europe, and the Israelites got the information, the Palestinians are Muslims, so they get the information from the Muslim countries, from Dubai them, the Ukrainian Russians are by Europe side, and they get the information also from Europeans and from King Charles them, the same the White House, Joe Biden them, that are from Europe, that still receives the information information from the European information holder, right? That's like office box, like post office box. In the post office box of the countries, those information needs to be released to the countries so that it does not cause war alarms by the human brain function in the universe, right? So when the war alarms in countries goes off up in the universe about it, where all the satellites are, so when those war functions goes up in countries, the war functions mean the information that needs to be released to the countries are being held by other countries, right? And the countries that needs to learn, I always say that the people who's managing the world need to manage it in a way that is fine for humanity, because humanity can handle all the technologies and all the processes that are being implemented. And I don't want to hardly talk. Let me take another sip of this. Humanity can handle all the information, but when the information are not released, the alarm, the war alarm goes off in the universe, and it makes the human brain function, and you can't hear it in person. Now people say you put earplugs on that day, but that's not how we should reason. We should reason, get people that can manage those processes, that knows how to release the information to the countries, so that the countries doesn't find themselves with a war machine going up because the information are not released to them in a way that are in a timely manner, right? In a manner that's fine for the countries. Israel find themselves still being part of the European family lines, and the information needs to be directed to them in a way that's not abusive to them. I always say that China, on the day that your parent in my house, Mama Martha might be Europe, might be Chinese. We don't know Mama Martha's grandparents, because there's two guys in our family that looks very Chinese, Brother Richard and my brother Ricardo Blacknote from Port Elizabeth, and from the dance club in Port Elizabeth. I can't mention it because everyone is anyway talking about him a lot. What's his name? The Godfather Supreme, right? My other cousin, Dion Blacknote in Port Elizabeth, he's the main director of Fort in South Africa. And they work with Japan also, because maybe there's Chinese family lines in our family. China's working with Ribea, trying to manage the process properly, and someone else is against China, or someone else in China is the whole time fighting the process about it. And I can't argue with them the whole time, but what I say is, when we communicate with one another, do it in a way that's not abusive to me. So if China has been in my house yesterday, and then the communication shouldn't go on the whole day in my house, because no one can hear the communication, but the family lines is that we are birthed in such a way, and the communication was there. The people that came to my house about pregnancy yesterday was two Chinese people, and it was my New Zealand people. And I also want to say something about that. And because the information shouldn't go now to South Africa, when it was two Chinese people who were sitting in my house yesterday, right? In the New Zealand people, and I'm from New Zealand. So the recordings that records in my house that are Google New Zealand, and I want kind of quickly get the water for that. Google New Zealand should, in Television New Zealand, and the Wi-Fi providers, they should not release information to South Africa when in Ribea Elise's house was yesterday to Chinese people. The information or recordings, if they record it for a reason, or they are listening in on a reason, then the information shouldn't be released to countries that are not in the discussion room or in the house or in the office about it, because then business officers find themselves fighting about it, because this was the people in the offices, and the information needs to be released to the countries, and Israel are being punished because Israelites is maybe working in New Zealand or somewhere in Europe, and now the information needs to go to Israel about the Europe working in offices in Europe, because the discussion in the office I educated on my page, the discussions that happened at Nibblebits was not only about Nibblebits in Ribea, Elise, and about the Europeans there. It was information that was given in a way that was not maybe all the words were said, but the communications of it is that how the people who manages the world need to manage it in a way that they release the information to the relevant people that was in the information country or in the information room about it. They release it to the parliamentary house and say yesterday the Ribea Elise was in the house and there was two Chinese people and this was the discussion, and they just release it to China's government, right? To the parliamentary house or to the army who might need the information for a different reason. And the same way in the offices, that when office people find themselves in the offices in these meetings, the meetings only needs to go to the parliamentary house of what the discussion were about. If it's Europeans, then the European government government only needs to be released the information of the Europeans that were in the office. This European is from Israel and maybe working in Europe, and they may be in this office, and that information I'm also talking about. So that information also needs to be released in a timely manner. The information can't go to South Africa because Ribea was in the room. No, because here's Ribea sitting about it. The information only goes to South Africa if the information might affect the South African government, but in a timely management, so that South African government don't go and release the information to the whole world and share the information from this one to that one, and everyone runs around the world paranoid about it, so that needs to be managed in a structured way. Another thing that I wanted to say, Russia, Ukraine also waiting on information that needs to come from Europe. So they only find themselves in the war when the information are not released to them. So they're waiting for information, and the information is like a post office box, and the information needs to be released to them. The information may be relating to their wars, and they need to get it in a timely manner. And another thing that I want to say about them, because otherwise the war machine goes up and the gun machine in the universe goes off, and everyone runs paranoid about it, and the human brain machine goes crazy about it, and people go paranoid about it because the human brain receives the information and the information needs to be released properly. And that's quickly what I want to say. I'm quickly going to have water before we continue with this discussion. That's correct. Let's continue with that. And what I've just said is all right. It's all what I want to say. Lie down, do that. Now let me switch the light up quickly. Now my live stream light look right in my house. Okay, that's great. Another thing that I want to mention. So we buy the information sharing in the world. When the information are released to the countries in a timely manner, even if the countries find themselves in war, the information needs to be thoroughly investigated. It has to go to the countries, but the process needs to be in a manner that are fine for the countries at war. And when the information needs to go, like in Niblibit's office, I've mentioned it too on my social media pages. This is where I was working, and this is where the Europeans were at. I explained the whole process to them. I explained the whole Malvina, Netherlands process to them. On my social media page, I explained to them that our family was then getting employment in Europe. My sister is also staying in Europe. I explained to them that Malvina is in Europe also, and this is the family, and this is the communication. and this is Niblibits, and then Malvina's family walked into Niblibits also for a job, and then I was looking around and saying, what are they doing in the office about it? And I didn't realize what was happening, and I didn't know the person. I didn't know what was they doing, but now come to think of it, I would now have reasoned that those years I didn't realize. And then when I started Bull and Bolded, I was working. Bull and Bolded is an open place, everyone can walk in and walk out. And Malvina's family walked in one day, and someone oddly said, but do you know these people, they are in corruption in South Africa? And I didn't realize if they were in corruption, and I don't really know. And I said, Malvina, then if you are in corruption, do not disturb me, because you know the world in the world was that. And maybe they are in our communication for a different reason. But when it's disruptive is when Russia, Ukraine waits on information from Ribea, Elise, that includes processes that they manage in the world, that includes their people in the world, in their country, and the countries, businesses that they have in the world, that affects the whole world in general, because everyone is having different processes and everyone is born from different countries. There's people in South Africa that might have been born from Russia, Ukraine, and that might have been years ago, pre-parents, families that really, I call it pre-parents, but it's a previous season that they were parenting in. And people with maybe have grandchildren in South Africa, and the Russian Ukrainians maybe knows who the children are, and they are managing and requiring the information in timely manners. And then I explained to them that then I was working at Niblibits and at Bull and Bolded and at Oostenburg Lodge Hotel, right? In Oostenburg Lodge Hotel, this is where everyone came in, and they were Europeans, and they came from Europe those years, and I was a bartender in the bar those years for them, right? Amazing process and amazing education that we had there. And then I was working at, where else? It's sales hire. Yes, European guys, amazing, white Afrikaner, European, right? I was working for them, and if there's any information that they require from sales hire or from Niblibits or from Bull and Bolded, then South African government needs to release the information so that they are not sitting in Russia, Ukraine, being blamed for certain European processes, and then they might have businesses in the countries. And that's why we educate and say, and that's why the information needs to be released in a way that is fine for everyone, so that humanity don't find themselves harming one another when it's processes that can be managed in a fine way for everyone. And then I was then employed at Sales High, and then Dubai called me for music. And then I was in Dubai, right? And in Dubai, I learned a whole lot of what Dubai was saying and explaining and not saying and not explaining with the words. And then from Dubai, we went on with our day, and then we learned that the places that we are at and the informations and the employments might sometimes affect your day. We think and reason in the world that I'm just employed at this office and it's just a meeting, and we're not even talking about Russia, Ukraine, and no one is talking about it, but everyone in the office are Europeans. Everyone in the office are from Europe, and the one guy was from Germany, the other guy was from France, and the other guys was from England, and they were the managers in the office, right? The office managers. And they were amazing at Niblibits, and we managed an amazing education process at Niblibits. And wherever the process got disruptive, no one knows. The only thing I know is that when I traveled to Dubai, and the year after that, anyone travels everywhere, Ribea, everyone wears yellow Ribea, everyone wears your New Orleans Vale colors Ribea. And sometime after I traveled to Dubai, Malvina's family traveled there for a different reason of Dubai managing his different processes differently. And then it affected my day, and I went onto social media, and it was almost in danger to our house, right? We have already lost 3 family members in a house. My mama at 60 years old, my brother young because he was drinking and having lifestyle choices. And that affects control things that people can do and can control the human brain in the universeness of humanity, control one another about. Lost my daughter when she was 3 years old, also in the whole process of communication in the world. In the oddness of all of those processes in communications, right? Education functions that are wrong. People that try to manipulate your house about it. People that try to manipulate and manage your house where you stay in. And that the processes tend to want to chase humanity about it, right? And Ribea, Elise says, but your processes are chasing my family about it, right? And when your processes are chasing the one the other, you'll need to know how to manage the processes so that humanity doesn't find themselves over abused and killing one another out wars, generations and generations of time, when it's only processes that can be managed in a way that are fine for everyone. The argument is never only about Israel that doesn't want Palestine. The argument is never only about Palestine being Muslims and Israel being Christians. The argument is never only about Israelite men wanting Palestine women or Palestine men wanting Israelite women. The argument is never only about Putin bombing Zelensky's country down. The argument is never only about Zelensky striking the temple of Putin, and Putin is not in the building about it. The argument is never only about Turkey having an earthquake and Syria having an earthquake while the Turkish film went to South Africa in 2020. The argument is never only about Morocco having a Moroccan earthquake after Elise said that South Africa, if you're busy in Morocco with Muslims in with Dubai, remember Morocco is on the African continent and some people are working on the African continent. So the argument is never only about everyone wearing yellow and everyone wearing New Orleans veil colors and everyone went to that school. And what else is that they're saying to me and reasoning it? The argument is how we manage the processes can affect the other one's country. And that's where Ribea Elise wants everyone who manages the process, and it includes my name. I'm not going to be baby Jesus who's going to be crucified by all of y'all. And baby Jesus they said baby Jesus was not even wrong on that day. And he was never wrong, and he's never wrong. And they came to chase Ribea Elise with that same process of he's never wrong, and he's never wrong. And Ribea Elise said, everyone, I just had enough with all of y'all chasing me up and down. If you really are looking for baby Jesus, go and look for it in your own houses and crucify